Here we go.
Hello and welcome to Set Talks, the podcast that helps you navigate and connect with the Colorado film scene. I'm your host, Nick Fiorella, and today's guest is Meredith Badler, the Deputy Director of the Colorado Business Committee for the Arts, also known as CBCA. Meredith is a passionate advocate for Colorado's creative economy, working at the intersection of business and the arts to empower organizations, artists, and change makers across the state, which is awesome.
It is.
Whether you're a filmmaker, a studio head, or just starting in the media production scene, Meredith has insights on how CBCA can be a powerful resource for you. Meredith, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Nick. I appreciate the invitation, and I'm thrilled to talk to you today.
How's your week going?
Too fast. I
Yeah.
am not ready for it to almost be the end of the week. We are always busy at CBCA and full of good stuff.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I mean, like, how did you get involved with the CBCA? And what is it exactly for those that don't know?
Sure. So the CBCA is the Colorado Business Committee for the Arts. That's a mouthful. So CBCA is how we are typically known by our acronym. And we've been around for 40 years. This is actually our 40th anniversary in 2025.
That's awesome. We need the applause sound effect.
Yes, applause sound effect. I know there are smart people who can do that.
Well, that's exciting.
Yes, it is exciting. And our organization has always had the mission of connecting arts and business across Colorado. We've been a statewide organization since our inception.
That's awesome. So, and how did you get involved and get into this role as the deputy director?
Yeah, I feel very lucky to have found a home at CBCA. I've been with the organization 12 years.
Oh, wow.
Which is unheard of in the nonprofit community. CBCA is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. I actually have a background in theater.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I did theater as a performer all through high school and college. I was in the Denver improv community for about 10 years, performing here downtown for a long time. So that's my arts background personally. I also just was very lucky to grow up in a household that took us to concerts and museums and performances and really valued arts and culture. So when I started my career here in Denver, I was doing nonprofit consulting and strategic planning, was working part-time once a week in a box office of a local theater just to stay in that realm, and just really realized I wanted to be on the other side of that table. I wanted to be working for an organization that was making an impact, and I wanted to be with my peeps. I wanted to be in the arts and have such a broad interest, though theater is my background. Like I said, I love all of arts and culture and all of the creative industries. So it was very lucky to find a role at CBCA. And the organization has grown and evolved significantly over that time. And I feel very lucky to be there and be part of that work.
That's awesome. Yeah. And also just, the access to kind of dip your toe a little bit into all the different art things that are going on around Colorado, and also just the connection on the state level has got to be super interesting to kind of, really from a grassroots level know like what's possible, what can get funded, what can't get funded, and just like, relationships with business owners and stuff. And, this podcast typically focuses on like film stuff and whatnot. And I know like we met at that town hall event, and infrastructure was like a whole thing where they were talking about spaces for people and that sort of thing. And, yeah, I mean, ultimately that kind of stuff I would assume has to kind of come down from the state level and get approved, and the tax incentive of course plays into that. And but I don't know, what are like kind of in general like the typical things that you guys provide and work on and that sort of thing, like as far as like just kind of giving an example of a typical thing that you guys are a part of.
Nick, there's
everything.
no typical day. To your point earlier about just how vast that is, like, yes, you're right. I feel lucky to work in an organization that supports the entire breadth of arts, culture, and creative industries. So from an individual filmmaker or studio to a large museum, to a history organization, to a painter, that's all within our scope. We are a statewide organization, so our scope covers the four corners, urban, rural, resort, regional of the state of Colorado. And then we're also working with business. So all different business sectors. So that's a massive scope that we get to be the connector, the convener, the service organization, the advocate for fostering really connections across those different industries all over our state. And I should mention, we're a small team. We fluctuate from 3 to 5 staff members. At the moment, we're 3. So that's a lot of work for a small but mighty team, but with a really important mission. You know, we believe strongly that art is smart for business. We believe strongly that the creative industries are a valuable part of Colorado's economy. And we know that having a strong arts community makes our people and our communities healthier, happier, safer, more vibrant. So we work really to make that possible.
No, I love it. I was just, when I was looking at the website, a lot of different programs, a lot of different services. Can you hit on some of those? Just kind of some of the key ones.
Yes. So our mission broadly is to advance Colorado's creative economy by connecting arts and business. So we have a suite of programs that work to connect businesses and their employees with arts and culture. So that looks like working with our member companies and getting their employees free tickets to a different cultural event every single month, or training people to serve on boards of cultural organizations. And then we work in the other direction, helping artists, including creative professionals in the film and media space, helping creative professionals with the business side of their work. So connecting them to pro bono legal services or business planning education. And then we have a lot of work that we do on sort of the ecosystem level, whether that's giving statewide awards for arts and business partnerships, doing economic research, or actually lobbying at the state legislature for matters that are important to the creative sector.
That is awesome. Yeah, no, totally. I mean, like, I would just say, like, for businesses and stuff, I feel like with the way social media is nowadays, that it's super important for businesses to make that connection. I mean, it's a lot of, I feel like marketing approaches are about culture, about getting involved with different like community things around town, and certainly just the media landscape of social media. I feel like all businesses now need to be on it with social media, and art and entertainment is basically the best foot forward for marketing. So I could see where they would, have a really great relationship with you guys, and you'd be a great resource for any business.
Exactly. And in 2 different ways. I think one, in a very tactical way, of every business right now needs content. Right. They need content that's engaging. They need stories. They need a unique, visually engaging way to talk about their work. And that is where partnering with people in the film and media industry, content creators, photographers, etc., storytellers, can help those businesses better position themselves. But also from a philanthropic standpoint, it is critically important for businesses to understand the value, both social and economic, that a vibrant arts and culture scene brings to the communities where they do their business. That impacts their employees, that impacts their customers, that impacts their brand. And so from a philanthropic standpoint, we need businesses stepping up and supporting the communities where they work and serve and do their business.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that is critically important to understand. The same way we invest in schools and safe neighborhoods, arts and culture are part of that equation.
Totally. I work at a big corporate company that's construction products, and I do their videos and whatnot, but like I hear that stuff a lot, just like the community stuff. Like they do a lot of Habitat for Humanity homes, and they're always trying to do outreach programs for construction stuff. But yeah, I agree. I think it's important for any business. As far as like those filmmakers or content creators, for those folks, I don't know, what would be things that they should know about in terms of resources, or even just like networking or what have you, or getting involved in some of these programs? You know, what would be kind of your advice for those folks to try to work with you guys and kind of, you know, expand their, you know, networking pool, resources, what have you?
Yeah, it's all of those things. I think it depends on their goals. CBCA is definitely a networked organization and a convener. So attending any of our events, our member meetups, our big annual luncheon, getting engaged in our programming, becoming a member of CBCA gives them access to that network. It gives them visibility in that network. So if someone is new coming into the market, we can be a great resource to help get them connected, get their name out there, put them in a room with arts and business people that they wouldn't normally be able to find and interact with. That's really one of the values that we bring, because we are so vast in our scope. You know, arts and business comprises a lot, that often at our events, that's the only time you're going to be able to see this mix of musicians and museum professionals and lawyers and bankers all in one space. And I think the two other things I'll mention there are our business support. So we run Colorado Attorneys for the Arts, as well as our Advancing Creatives Intensive. And I can talk more about those, but they're really about providing business skills and business education to people in the creative industries, usually for free or low cost. And then the third thing is advocacy. Unfortunately, I don't believe our arts and creative industries are valued the way they should in terms of policy and investment, especially for the amount of return that they give back to our communities and our community members. So that's a role that we play at CBCA, is making sure we're hearing from those creative workers and we're advocating on their behalf.
Oh, that's awesome. What about, like you said, becoming a member? What's the easiest and what's the route people should go to do that?
Through our website, cbca.org, is how you can easily become a member. We have a variety of different levels, usually based on the number of full-time employees at a particular company. So if it's a large media company with 10 to 20 employees, that's one level. If it's a solo filmmaker, that's a different level. The benefits of membership, in addition to that networking and visibility that I mentioned, we offer every single month a different free cultural opportunity for all of our members and all of their employees. Doesn't matter what size you are. You could be a large national bank with an office here and you're a CBCA member, or a small creative agency, or an individual artist. You get those invitations and can request those tickets every month. And it's a way that we can leverage the arts as an employee benefit, and a way that cultural organizations can get new audiences. And then we also do member meetups. We do networking events. Members get discounted tuition to our leadership program, member pricing for our annual awards luncheon, etc.
That's awesome. I was going to say just the free monthly event is worth it. But
it's awesome.
Yeah, you listed off a whole bunch of other things that probably are worth it just in themselves. That's cool. Well, hell yeah. I'll have to look into that. I would love to go to some of the events and stuff. So you do have different programs. So there's the leadership arts. Can you tell me about that and why people should, go on the website and check that out?
I am so glad you asked me about leadership arts. It's one of my favorite things that I get to run at CBCA. We've been doing it also for almost 30 years. We have about 1,200 alumni of leadership arts, and it's all about a pipeline of volunteer leaders, board members, and arts advocates particularly the Denver metro area. So it's a 9-month program. There's a cohort of about 50 people that go through it every year. They again represent that diversity of our membership. So arts and business folks, early career, late career, all different industries. And what ties them all together is an interest in volunteer service and an interest in arts and culture in some way. And so that training teaches them some of those skills of governance and fundraising and advocacy, as well as what are the current issues in our cultural landscape. Each session is hosted at a different arts venue, so it's essentially 12 field trips that you get to go on. And then the last session, we actually have about 30 to 40 cultural organizations that come and set up a booth and meet our graduates and start the conversation about civic engagement and volunteer service.
Oh, wow. That's all. Any documentary filmmakers listening should jump on that.
Well, that's why I'm so glad you mentioned it, because it's really meant for anyone, again, who has an interest in supporting the arts. And we love when there are creative professionals, as you said, storytellers, artists that are in that cohort, that are in that mix. They're networking with that diverse group. They're bringing their different skills. And I have to tell you, this audience, the film and TV and media folks, would be so valuable sitting on boards and getting involved with cultural organizations. They have tangible skills that they can offer, as well as a way to, again, continue to invest their time and talent into these communities that make Colorado what it is.
Oh, for sure. The access to stories for documentary style stuff, I feel like would just be like, you'd be sitting there. There's like a plethora of ideas as you go through this program, I would imagine.
Exactly right. And the timing is good because our applications for our next cohort opened this week. So those will be due the beginning of August, and then the program runs September through May.
Awesome. Okay. Well, that's really cool. Well, can you talk about some of the other, resources that CBCA offers? Tell me more about the Colorado Attorney for the Arts and the Advancing Creatives Intensive.
Yes. So for a long time, I mentioned CBCA has been around for 40 years. For the majority of that time, our focus was really on cultural nonprofit organizations. And when I came to CBCA, we started getting questions about a previous organization that used to provide legal services to the creative industries, and they had sort of quietly disappeared. So I helped launch Colorado Attorneys for the Arts, or CAFTA is what we call it, which actually has its 10th birthday this year. It's been around for a decade under CBCA.
Nice.
And CAFTA is a legal referral service for the creative industries.
Okay.
So we help connect artists, creative professionals of all kinds with pro bono or free legal assistance to help them with a specific arts-related legal matter.
Okay. So like a media production company could come to you guys for help to connect them with a lawyer, or what would be like a use case?
Absolutely. I mean, any of you, think of how many contracts you write and sign on a daily basis.
Totally.
Think about the amount of intellectual property and copyrighted material that you create or use in your work. Think of how many LLCs you form for every, feature film that you create.
Totally.
All of those things should have a lawyer either looking at them, reviewing them, defending you if someone's using your copyrighted work or breaching your contract.
Right.
So this is a referral service for exactly that purpose. There's an application process, a vetting and matching process, and then we also do virtual consultations a couple times a year, as well as workshops and webinars on a regular basis.
That's excellent.
It's an incredible resource. Not enough people know about it. So I'm always talking about CAFTA, and we are so lucky to have it here in Colorado. There are about actually 24 volunteer lawyers for the arts organizations across the country. California has one of the largest, New York, Chicago, but even in like Miami and Kansas City and St. Louis, we are the only one that's operating in the Mountain Time Zone. So we are honored to offer that service to creatives here in Colorado.
Yeah, and I just had a film producer on the podcast that talked about basically budgeting for legal stuff. And it was like a good, maybe not a huge chunk of the budget, but certainly it was like $5,000 to $10,000 or something like that you really needed to kind of have in place, just for the legal stuff that you're going to have to go through when you try to license the film and what have you. And sounds like this could be a little a more cost-effective route to go potentially.
Potentially. There is an income qualification to
Oh, I see.
get
Okay.
pro bono help, but we still can help make referrals.
Yeah.
There isn't an income qualification for our consultations, and certainly not for our workshops and webinars.
Sure.
And then since we launched that program, people started coming to us and saying, well, I also need a CPA, and I also need help with my marketing, and I also need help with all of these other business skills. You know, artists are small business owners, they're entrepreneurs, whether they like it or not. I feel like that's more socially acceptable to say in the film and media industry. I can tell you, talking to like musicians or painters, they push back on that, but they are.
I think you have to though nowadays, right? I don't like doing it either. It's like, you know, it's a whole job to be like your own sort of social media person or whatever. But it's like nowadays, I feel like you kind of have to do it.
Yeah. So we launched a program in 2020 called Advancing Creatives, and then reformatted it a little bit in 2022 into what we call our Advancing Creatives Intensive. So it's another cohort-based program with a curriculum that group moves through. Again, the cohort is sort of the full diversity of creative disciplines. So we have, let me think, we're in the middle of a cohort right now that has filmmakers, a voice actress, animators, a photographer, a printmaker, a sculptor, a musician, several musicians. And they go through this curriculum really to help them define their particular vision and goals for their business. And then we walk them through a variety of exercises to help them clarify their goals and action plan. And then in the middle, we bring in speakers who are talking about contracts and budgeting and branding and some of those other business pieces. So hopefully they leave with a clearer direction and goals and an action plan and some additional skills to help them achieve those goals and action plans, as well as this amazing diverse network that has sort of broken them out of their, just their discipline or just their work. So we've seen some really wonderful, actually, collaborations that come out of that cohort.
Sure.
It's a pretty special program.
That is really cool. Yeah, sign me up. That sounds awesome. Everyone you listed in that group, it's like they could get together and make a film, I feel like. You got your music guy, you got your filmmaker. Well,
actually, no, it is going to happen. One of the things with that program, we get pass-through funding from our state arts agency. So Colorado Creative Industries is our state arts agency. They provide some funding for us so that we can give career advancement grants to those graduates of that program. So again, helping them use what they've learned. Help them invest in a QuickBooks subscription, a website upgrade, better headshots, new equipment. And there was actually some folks from a previous cohort where a ceramicist, a sculptor, applied for the grant to hire the filmmaker she met in the cohort to make a video about her work because she realized that she needed that tool to better tell her story.
Sure.
It was pretty awesome.
Totally. Well, I mean, you've kind of hit on it, but, how can filmmakers, production companies tap into CBCA, the CBCA network to build relationships? I feel like you pretty much covered it on that. Because you guys do have like sponsors, corporate partners, other art supportive businesses. Are there grants in particular, like from at least like, let's say it's a video production company or something like that, or someone trying to do an environmental film, because there's a lot of documentaries that get made here. What would be the best foot forward, you think, as far as like somebody like that kind of approaching you guys to, expand their network and kind of achieve their goals?
Yeah. Well, I will say, with the exception of that one program I just mentioned, we are otherwise not a funder. We're not a foundation. Yeah. We don't give grants. Very rarely are we sponsoring things. We have to be a little bit like Switzerland in this landscape.
Sure.
Again, because we work with so many different arts disciplines and businesses and areas of the state, but we can help be a navigator. Again, we are a very networked organization in that way, so can help point people to resources, either local, state, or national, that can help, or help make introductions. That's a lot of what we spend our time doing is introducing people to potential partners.
Sure.
So that's really the role we're in. And then again, providing those opportunities, those networking events or programming opportunities where we're bringing together arts and business. We're putting them in the same room under a particular context for those introductions to happen.
Oh, it's awesome. And that's, I feel like, half the battle with any artistic, business or individual, for sure, is just the networking aspect. And then obviously the actually doing it and making good art or good videos or what have you. But no, that's really cool. Can you talk about kind of like the legislative side of things and how you guys are, I would imagine, kind of always trying to push for, like you said, like you felt like, sometimes like art in general with like state funds is a little underserved. Can you talk about that? Like from the filmmaking side, the tax incentive is what everyone talks about, and we need, and they did reform it last year, which is great. But people are always pushing for a better tax incentive. Like, can you talk about your guys' relationship with, pushing legislation for the arts?
Yes, absolutely. So advocacy has always been part of our mission at CBCA, though it has been more advocacy with a little a, more community awareness. We've done an economic research report on Denver metro culture for 30 years that has been a vital tool for elected officials and business leaders and cultural organizations. We've done presentations to chambers of commerce and et cetera. So that has always been part of our work. And then it was really in 2020, it was when the pandemic hit, that it became very apparent that our sector did not have a cohesive, coordinated, or frankly loud voice at the state legislature. And it was a really scary time. The creative sector was the first to close, one of the last to reopen. We don't have the same safety net as other industries do. So with the help of a lot of partners, they sort of turned to us at CBCA and said, this is something can you please take this on? And we were very honored and privileged to do that and have been building that capacity ever since. So what that looks like is CBCA is officially Colorado's state arts advocacy organization. Through that, we are part of numerous national coalitions and groups that are advocating for the arts, that are providing us resources that we share with folks in the state. In 2022, we launched something called the Colorado Arts Action Network.
All right.
Or CAAN. We have so many acronyms.
There's a lot of acronyms.
And they all begin with C. It's very silly. So the Colorado Arts Action Network is a grassroots mobilization platform. It lives on our website. We run it. We administer it. It's not a revolutionary thing. Most advocacy initiatives have a tool like this, but it's a way that we can communicate directly to advocates all over the state, give them updates, let them know what's happening, and more importantly, it's how they can easily take action. So when someone signs up for the Colorado Arts Action Network, they give their name, they give their email address, and they give their home address. So that means when there's an opportunity to, let's say, contact your state representative and tell them that they should vote for increased film incentives,
right,
they can get a templated message that they can customize or not, and then that message goes directly to their elected official.
Oh, wow.
Legislators need to hear from their constituents. They need and want to hear from their voters. So we make sure that those messages get directly to the people who represent them.
That's awesome.
And that's both a state and a federal level.
And let's say we're voting on the next tax incentive, and there's another town hall, and they're like, we all need to, it would be your guys' website ultimately that you go to kind of make that connection and make your voice heard?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's about quantity.
Okay.
So it's about, flooding inboxes.
Right.
With a consistent message. And what that shows to legislators is people care. People are showing up. You better believe that those folks have legislative aides that are counting the number of emails that they're getting. And it shows that, frankly, we have our act together as a sector. Again, if we want people to take us seriously as an industry and a workforce that deserves investment, then we have to show up that way, and we have to speak with one voice. And so this kind of tool makes that possible.
That's awesome.
It's incredible. And we've been able to use it a couple times to pass some exciting legislation. CBCA helped get our state arts agency its first budget increase in over a decade last year. That took Colorado from 46th in the nation for state government arts funding to 39th. We got out of the bottom 10. And that's huge.
That is huge. That's cool.
So that's a really exciting tool that we now have at our disposal, that CBCA runs and administers. I think we have at least one advocate in every state Senate district and almost every state House district. Again, this is a statewide tool. So this is also a way that people in Sterling and Durango and all over the state can be part of our advocacy work. So the other thing that we rolled out just last fall is something called Colorado's Arts Policy Framework. Okay. So when CBCA took on this advocacy role, it was during a crisis. We were making sure our state arts agency and film agencies' budgets didn't get cut. We were trying to get as much of that ARPA funding and relief funding to the people who really needed it. There were some one-time grant programs that we were able to advocate for that we knew was just sort of a one-time opportunity to help support capital projects in the creative industries. And so as we saw that sort of crisis abating and those one-time relief dollars fading away, we said, okay, if we're going to continue in this leadership role, we want to do it right. And for us, that meant being proactive and being inclusive with our advocacy work. And in order to do that, we had to hear from people. So we spent about a year and a half doing community engagement, doing surveys, interviews, virtual and in-person focus groups. I got to go to La Junta for the first time to hear from community members. We truly drew a map and said, how do we go to all four corners to hear from people in the creative fields all over our state, as well as some virtual groups. We heard from about 800 people in that process, and really asking, what are your policy priorities? What do you want us to be advocating for? And what are some ideas for some policy solutions? And so that framework rolled out last November. It is also on our website. There's a full research report that compiles all of that qualitative data. It's like 50 pages long with tons of specific ideas that we heard from community members. And then there's sort of a rolled up summary of sort of a big picture framework of priorities. That's available as well in English and in Spanish.
All right.
And some of those priorities that I wanted to mention, particularly for this group, we have four main top level strategic priorities. And
this came from people's
This came directly from people's input.
Oh, and it kind of boiled down to what are the main things?
What are those big buckets?
Okay,
what are the policy categories that we should be looking at and moving forward? So the first is advocating for thriving arts communities, really looking at access to arts and cultural opportunities and community well-being. That's the first one.
Nice.
The second is our creative economy, investing in those creative industries. So that speaks to what I was saying about, taking ourselves seriously so others can, making sure film and media and music and visual arts have a seat at the table, are being considered the same way we are supporting other businesses and industry sectors and workforce sectors.
Sure.
The third, which I think is most relevant for this group, is livability for our creative workers, the actual people who are making the art, who are making the content, who are behind the camera, who are in front of the camera, who are painting the sets. How can we make sure they can stay in Colorado and thrive in Colorado?
Yeah,
so
totally.
this intersects a lot with policy issues related to affordability and housing that impact everyone in our state. But again, how can we make sure that creative workers are included in those opportunities, or maybe even have some opportunities specific to the nuance of their work, thinking about gig workers and freelance workers, thinking about the physical demands that are on creative workers who are working long hours or with heavy equipment or painting murals in 100-degree heat. So that's very important.
Yeah.
And then our final one is all about arts learning and arts education. And I think this relates to your field as well. This relates to film and media and content creation, because we need that pipeline. We need young people to feel like they can have a career in this space and a career here in Colorado, and that they're getting those skills through our school systems, through higher ed, so that they can succeed.
For sure. Yeah. You don't want people just to, well, number one, you need the education in place, but then once they have it, you don't want them to just leave, right? Like they need to hopefully have the economy from a creative perspective in Colorado that they can stay here and do good work here.
Yeah. And that's how it all, that's how it all fits together, is how do we train them, build that pipeline, have a community and a state where people can afford to live here, and opportunities and infrastructure where they can have a successful career.
For sure.
So that's our policy. It's not our policy framework. We intentionally named it Colorado's Arts Policy Framework because it's big. And it's not just about what CBCA is going to do. It's what the community said they wanted and needed. And it's going to take all of us to make those things happen. And a lot of those policy priorities are actually things that need to get actualized on a local or a regional level.
Sure.
When it comes to building infrastructure, it's not necessarily the state that's going to be doing that. It might be, or they might provide some tax credits or support in that sense. But there's a lot of work that can and should be happening on a county level or a municipal level. And again, that's why we included all of those, 20 to 50 pages of community ideas, hoping that people across the state will see this framework and say, this is what my community needs. I've been struggling with how to fix one of these things. Let me see how I can be a part of this.
For sure. Well, I mentioned it before, but you and I met at that industry town hall that Shauna Schultz was leading the charge on, and that whole team did a really great job putting that event together. And that, even honestly, just going to it was like so refreshing, like having kind of a community get together of like-minded individuals talking about, like, they boiled it down to some of the stuff that came out of this like Colorado film study, where it identified like, we need better infrastructure, tax incentive. We're siloed, and stuff, which I think is I would imagine a common problem for not just film stuff, but most stuff in Colorado. I've talked to people where they're like, the people down in Colorado Springs, like, it's like a whole different world down there of different, people doing stuff, or out in Durango or out in Telluride or what have you. So, and I think it's just the landscape, right? It's like smaller towns and stuff and whatnot. So like having that event kind of bring people together, and it was virtual. They had it in 4 different spots around the state. So it was meant to be very inclusive. And I'm from out of state. So it's like, I'm not, I moved here like 6 years ago. So it's like when people from Colorado Springs are like, oh, Denver people have their nose in the air, or vice versa. I'm like, oh, really?
Not me.
I don't know. I'm new here. I don't really, I think everyone's the same. But anyway, like, yeah, I don't know. What was your kind of take on that? I thought, and they kind of mapped out like a flywheel tried to map out a flywheel of like, education, projects, like drawing more projects in, and you're trying to, create this momentum of training and then jobs and repeat, or what have you. I don't know. What was your thoughts on that event, and maybe where do you see it going from kind of your perspective on the from this
great question. I was I was thrilled to be invited. I was thrilled to attend. I actually first met Shauna when her film, or her, I first met Shauna when her company submitted a video. We made a thank you legislators video for the advocacy work and the successes we had that spring, and her company made a video for that, and I was like, oh my gosh, these people are so cool.
She's so sweet, and her husband are very nice, like just super cool.
That event was very special. I think for many of the reasons you mentioned, of like, this report showed that we were all siloed. Okay, how do we break down those silos? I loved that it was statewide, that they made that effort to have people in 4 different locations in real time. One of my favorite things about that event was how intergenerational it was.
Sure.
I talked to students, I talked to emerging filmmakers, I talked to people who had been in the industry for 20 plus years, and that was really special. And it was truly collaborative. The way that it was facilitated, making people talk to folks who had different backgrounds, as well as convening around topic areas that they found of interest. It was very special. I think the ideas that they came up with, and I was able to participate in a few of the follow-up conversations.
Oh, nice.
Were really helpful. They were specific. They got people thinking about, what do we actually need? And one of the things I loved about Shauna's facilitation was, whenever someone would say, well, how are we going to do this? Or, we've tried this before, she would say, well, now you're here. Now you're at the table, and kept trying to empower people to not just sit back and say, well, someone else will do this.
Sure. Yeah, you don't want it to just be like I can't think of another word, but like a bitch fest of the tax incentive sucks, and there's nothing we can do about it, or whatever. Like, it's like, okay, well, let's identify the problems and then come up with like definitive action items. Mm-hmm. So like, I'm excited to kind of see where that goes. I know they're planning more events and kind of mapping out, action items that are a little more tangible, I guess, instead of just, identifying issues, but then not like moving the needle forward. Yeah.
And that comes down to leadership, and it comes down to who has the time and ownership over that, who truly sees, I see how this initiative or opportunity can advance my work. And so therefore I'm going to like roll up my sleeves and put on my leadership pants and like bring people along and make that happen. 'Cause otherwise it becomes a situation where a lot of people sort of point at each other. And that takes time, and that's organic, and that's community organizing. Like, that takes time for that to gel, and for the opportunities to start flourishing. We can't do all of those things at once.
Sure.
That scope is vast. There were, I don't know how many, 6 or 8 different like pillars in that flywheel. Mm-hmm. So I think once one of those things starts really moving forward, that will also provide some momentum and a model for others to lead.
Totally. And I think, it's a little outside of what that town hall was 100% going forward then, but like ultimately Sundance coming to Boulder, I feel like is kind of a, quite a, like push forward, I guess, or at least a really cool aspect of like something that is very much involved with the top professional film industry, that ultimately is now going to be housed in Colorado. And I would imagine, people like the CFEA, WIFMCO, different organizations, maybe you guys as well. Like, I don't know, like kind of working with them to try to, make it as much part of Colorado's kind of scene as possible, like, and kind of connecting the dots of some of what we've been trying to do over the years to kind of move that needle forward. Maybe Sundance can kind of at least, I don't know if that's just the answer. It's certainly not just the answer. It's a cool festival, but like, I don't know, like, it's certainly inspiring.
It's not the only answer, because we've had an incredible creative and film community here
Right.
for years.
Totally.
We have. I mean, that's what attracted them here, is because they saw the raw material, they saw our existing reputation, they saw our existing infrastructure, they saw our existing people and advocates and resources. So I'm excited. CBCA did officially support that initiative. We helped advocate for the bill that was at the legislature that was part of that package to provide those tax incentives to bring them here. So we were involved mostly on the lobbying side, as well as attending some of the community events to, show them around Boulder, show them the town.
Cool.
So we were involved in that way. We were by no means sort of the front and center group, but definitely did what we could and did what we were asked to do to support that initiative. And I truly believe that there is an opportunity here that we have 2 years to really make possible, that this can really be a rising tide that lifts all boats. And not just for the film community. I think, again, one of the things that I think brought Sundance here is seeing how collaborative and cross-disciplinary our creative community is here in Colorado. So I think there are also opportunities for other parts of our creative and art sector to be part of that rising tide. If we do it right, if we are prepared, if we are clear with those asks and opportunities, for them to come to the table and for us to come to the table with Sundance.
Well, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. And I think, as you said, I think it will be, a rising tide lifts all boats. I think it's going to benefit all the organizations around town to do with arts and film and stuff like that. And just, I'm just really excited to go to the festival and whatnot too, and just check it out. And I'm over in Westminster, so like just being that close, I'll just feel like, I'll just drive down there and check it out if I can find parking.
If you can find parking. I remember the other thing I was going to say.
Yeah, no worries. Go ahead.
So we also have an opportunity to leverage this moment of our governor and our state legislators feeling really jazzed about film and the creative industries. How do we keep that momentum going?
Right.
You were willing to shell out this investment, roll out the red carpet, pull out all the stops to bring this festival here. To me, that says you, deep down, you understand the value of arts and the creative industries to our state. You wouldn't have done all of that if that was not something they realized. So what's our next ask? What's the next opportunity? How do we keep that momentum going to, again, support what's already here? Sundance didn't come here because they saw a gap. They came here because they saw fertile ground and a community that was already so ripe and with so much possibility and so much to show for itself already with, Series Fest has been here for over 10 years. Denver Film Festival has been here for over 40 years. Like, we already have a great community. Mm-hmm. How do we leverage this opportunity to keep uplifting them as well as our broader arts sector? No,
for sure. Yeah, I think it's going to be super, super exciting. I can't wait for 2027 when it all kicks off. Well, kind of as we close out here, for someone listening who's new to Colorado and just starting out in the media production space, what's the best way for them to get involved? I think we touched on this, but just to kind of hit it one more time, what's the best way for them to get involved with the CBCA and benefit from its resources?
Absolutely. Well, our website is your first stop. CBCA.org. You can sign up for our newsletter. That's a great way to hear about upcoming events or programs. You should absolutely sign up for the Colorado Arts Action Network. That's a separate place on our website where you sign up for that. That's where you're getting information about advocacy and policy updates and can hear about opportunities to lend your voice to support the creative sector. So those are two: signing up for our newsletter, signing up for the Colorado Arts Action Network. We're also on social media. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. But CBCA, as a membership organization, there's a lot you can do with us that you don't have to be a member for. But with any service organization like ours, you get out what you put in.
Sure.
So it's showing up for networking events. It's participating in one of our programs. It's attending our big annual luncheon, which is 700 people from across the state, across the arts and business community, celebrating 12 different honorees with 6 live performances. It's amazing. So those, I think, are some of the best ways. And then taking advantage of those resources. That Colorado Attorneys for the Arts application is always live on our website, able to help connect you for a contract, for a copyright. So those, taking advantage of those resources, there's no reason you should suffer in that sense. Like, we are here to help.
Awesome.
So those are some of the best ways to connect.
No, cool. And then what's on the horizon for you guys? What's next for in this year and into 2026?
Yeah, a few things. Continuing to celebrate our 40th anniversary. CBCA has been around since 1985, doing this work across the state. I mentioned applications for our next Leadership Arts cohort. We'll be celebrating the 10th anniversary of Colorado Attorneys for the Arts this fall. We're actually hosting a national conference of all of the different volunteer lawyers for the arts organizations. Will be coming here in Denver this fall, which is awesome. And then in November, we're rolling out our next economic activity study. So we do this report every other year and have been doing that for about 30 years. Looking at the economic and social impact of cultural nonprofit organizations in the Denver metro area. So that we're very excited to put together and share in November. And then continuing, again, our advocacy work. We're active on the federal level at the moment, supporting things like the National Endowment for the Arts, the National Endowment for the Humanities, etc. And yeah, keeping the lights on and doing the good work.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I feel like I want to give you a hug. I'm like,
yes,
I love
a hug.
Amen,
You can give me a
sister.
hug afterwards.
Keep going. This is all good stuff. Like, oh my God. It's like, that's so cool that you guys are doing all this stuff. Hats off to you guys. Really appreciate everything that you're doing. I need to go to some of these events, become a member, get more involved for sure. Yeah. Even just for the networking aspects that you described, it sounds amazing. So thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Nick. I appreciate the invitation and congratulations on this great podcast. I think it's...
Thank you. Hopefully it's helpful.
I think it is. I think initiatives like this really help strengthen those communities. Again, giving us a collective voice, resources, direction, connections to different people in our community. So thank you for everything you're doing too, Nick.
Oh, no worries. I'm loving doing it. It's let me meet people like you. I think it's great, and I'm going to keep doing it. So
right on.
Cool.
Rock and roll.
Well, thanks a lot. This is Set Talks, the podcast that helps you navigate and connect with the Colorado film scene. Thanks for tuning in.